we should be good to go. Let's go back to this one. And yeah, we are good. We've got a lesson here. Okay, what are your guys' code names? What are your code names for our analysis? X and K. We got X and K again. All right, cool. Okay, I think we're all good. So we are actually watching a live tournament. This like Labor Day Invitational. I think it's in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Turn that down a little bit, and we're all good to go. Some analysis, and you guys, are you guys gonna play each other, or are you gonna play someone else?
Figure it out.
So we're watching Ostrovkiy. I played him once, had a good position against him, but he ended up getting me. Ostrovkiy versus Mardov. He's down on time, 11 minutes. What are we at? Move 20. So they probably have 20 more moves to go to hit a time control.
Yeah,
usually 40. Okay, so how do you guys analyze this? This is interesting. We achieved a middle game position. We had this little skirmish with the two knights hanging. Let's go back to that real quick, because we just saw this moment, right? So white attacks the black knight, black attacks the white knight. But we said he weakened a square. What square did black weaken when he went c5?
He weakened the b5 square?
Partially. I mean, well, you always have a6, but it becomes a little bit weaker. But what's because he needs, now there's only one pawn that's able to cover that. And then you would soften b6 if you play a6. What's the main weakness with this created? It's sort of two, but what's the main square that's weakened? Weakened by c5.
That you weaken your d6 pawn too?
D6?
That's one that I was looking at, because I could be complete.
You said you were looking at d6?
Yeah.
Yeah, d6. That pawn is weak, and then which square in particular? I mean, that's a weak pawn on a weak square. I mean, the pawn used to be able to guard it. Now you made a choice. You can't. You already moved. The e-pawn moved, and I think traded off, right? So traded off, I think, on d4. He took or something like that. And so we don't have an e-pawn anymore. We don't have a c-pawn is moved, so you can't cover d6. What about d5, though? What's going on with d5?
What's going on there? Well, you have no way to control it with your pawns anymore.
Right. So theoretically, that's a weak square for black, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, he's the only one looking at it now, but permanently it's weak. I mean, white can reorganize things, right? Like, ultimately, the knight kind of wants to wrap around. That's why he did knight b5. And we talked about this. We already looked at the line. If the pawn takes, the bishop just takes back and hits the queen. And that's a really strong bishop. Then he'll get his knight back. So he goes knight b5. The knight, again, we're like, what would happen if he just keeps attacking the knight? So he goes a6, attacks the knight again. Knight goes to c3. Ultimately, he does trade. And this is where things settle down a little bit. So we kind of had, the dust is cleared, right? Smoke is cleared. We had a little bit of a skirmish. Rook centralize. Now, generally speaking, often if you're playing an English setup, the f5 pawn's not that great for black. But what's the weakness that white has actually committed? And especially black, as we said, black weakened d6 and d5. But white has a weakness too. What's the weakness white's created a few moves ago?
A few moves ago, white created. Just looking at the pawn structure, doesn't look too awful.
But just think about, there's a point that kind of needs to be looked after in white's position. So these pawns are the soul of chess, right? So these pawn structural deficiencies are gonna stay with you. So for black, it's d6, a little softening over here because of a6, but d6 pawn's weak, the d5 square is weak. f5's okay, it lets the rook left happen or something. Helps to control e4 for black, so white can't play e4. But where's the weak pawn? Can you guys find the weak pawn in white's position that he needs to look after?
The e3 pawn?
Right, e3 pawn. Now, since you can't play e4, well, he wants to play bishop e2, obviously. But you can't do it now because queen takes with check. Maybe you can play, like, king h1, and then here, so the queen can't take because it gets mated, right? You have to do, like, rook f7 or rook f6 and clog it up a little bit. Maybe they go here and here, something like that. So I don't know. It's kind of dynamically balanced. But there's another imbalance, which I'm not sure who it favors yet, but it's definitely something that's annoying for Mardov, who should be, I guess, theoretically the weaker player. He's the FM. Ostrovskiy's the IM. but Mardov seems pretty strong. It doesn't have their rating in front of us, but what is it that white has like that black doesn't have? Like what's the imbalance here? The main we talked about pawn structure. What's the other imbalance?
The pair.
Bishop pair.
Yeah.
Good old bishop pair. Well, but you know, again, like there's enough counter pressure. I think that's the problem with f3. Like, yeah, it kept the knight out. Because if black had the knights, he wanted his knight to be strong on e4. So white's like, okay, my role, if I have the bishop pair, is to minimize the strength of your knights. I want to make my imbalance, the fact that I have the bishop pair favor me, and the fact that you have the knight not favor you. Minimize the knight. Well, obviously this knight can centralize, clog up the center. But this bishop would love to go to b2 and work with the queen, but you know, this counter pressure on e3 is just annoying for white. So both sides kind of have something going on. I'm not sure who's better. It's dynamically balanced in a way, but again, like there are these weaknesses like d6 and d5. That's a backward pawn. Like that pawn's really, it's hard to push.
It's really bad. Black can just gang up on it, and I don't know. I still prefer white gang up on it. I still think I prefer white just because of the pair, and it's not like white's the only one who has a pawn.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the bishop pair, especially you know if he does end up achieving d5, just opens more lines. It makes it even harder to clog things up here if there's less protection. The interesting thing is if the knight goes here, he plays f4, he permanently weakens the e4 square. If the pawn pushes to f4, right? Then that's kind of the equivalent. If you push here, it's like the equivalent to backward pawn, weakness. But you know, interestingly, if he plays d5, you have tension here. So the c5 pawn eventually will come under fire if you get a rook on the c file. You see in d file pressure. And was it K? I think K was saying something.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
The thing I like about white more is that he has more like freedom with his pieces, like black. It seems like almost every move he makes, it's gonna like produce a weak square.
For white or for black?
Or for black. And if white has like room to maneuver with like his rooks and his c bishop and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, all that's true except for one thing, the e3 pawn. I don't know, maybe f3 was a bad choice, playing f3 because you see, like you said, I mean, white has some space, like you know, pressure on d6. You got the d file and you got some space on the queen side and stuff. But he's tied down to the e pawn. So again, like you can't really use your bishop right now, right? Because there's this. And like I said, you know, I think rook f6 to e6 will apply even more pressure on that. It's kind of annoying. Or maybe black can start some kind of kingside pressure with the rook lift over, looking at the g and h pawns, make those targets. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you're right. The bishop pair is good. There's a little space, but what do you do? It's kind of tied down, right?
Yeah.
He needs to free himself. Okay, wait. We're here. We're analyzing this position, but they just made a couple moves. So he decided to remove the tension basically by taking on c5, forcing Mardov to make a decision. He takes back. Interestingly, he took with the b pawn. I was kind of not expecting that because, well, it's like either way you're going to have a backward pawn basically. If you take with the d pawn, he could go rook b1, tie him down, you know, make it hard to play b5. That's actually pretty hard to defend. I think he figures that like it's easier to defend the d pawn than the b pawn, right? So he takes the b pawn, but now that's why he went rook b1. He's like, well, I still have an open file to use now. I can strike at the open file first, and then he's like, well, okay, fine, I'm guarding it laterally, and then he just lifts his rook, kind of what I was talking about with this stuff. So this is interesting, though. He's kind of trying to, you know, disentangle and detangle himself here. He's going rook f2 now. This is the live game. Wow, look at the time though for Ostrovkiy. That is significant. You know, it's 5 times as much as him.
Yikes! Yeah, that definitely makes it a lot harder to play accurately.
Yeah, you can easily make a blunder when you get down to a couple minutes, as I know.
From an hour 30 game to 5 minutes, it'll like you could lose.
Let me turn it down.
That'll change a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Turn it down.
Yeah, and give him a to the IM who does not want to lose this game.
And let's see, make sure everything's working. It says we're 52 seconds. I think we're lagging. I think I'm lagging pretty badly. Let's see. Yeah, everything looks right though. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of reminds me. Okay, well, there's a game like a famous Rubinstein game where he plays f3, and I think he does. Yeah, he does f3, rook f2, then he swings, and he's hitting a backward c pawn in that game. You guys might know it's like Rubinstein versus Solway or something. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's from like early
No.
1900s, famous Rubinstein game. You guys familiar with that?
I think I nope.
It's the game. It's like the famous backward pawn game, basically. But it's not that different. It's just that it's a C pawn. It's like C6 and D5, and then he actually plays Rook F3, plays Rook F2. He comes over. I don't know if he has that in mind or something, but again, like in that game, there really wasn't much for Black to do though, for Solway to do. It was more of a one-sided kind of game. This game is not one-sided though. I think Black has a lot of counterplay. Look at the knight, the rook lift. He's got a lot of play. I think White's pawn structure is still better though. Like look at this pawn here, right? So that's a good move. Lateral attack on these two pawns. Probably White wants to double, yeah?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Maybe Rook D2 at some point. Come this way. Some piece, a rook or a queen, looking at D6, maybe coming to the B file, doubling up. Those are all possibilities. I don't know. It's probably easier for White to play. I think I agree with you, Kay, that it's
a lot easier not for White, but Black's not out.
Yeah. It's yeah. The compensating factor is that Black has 6 times as much time on the clock.
Yeah.
So that I'm the one to say, hey, I don't care too much about the times. If you have a better position, but his position's not that great to say, okay, I don't have to worry about my time. I'm just gonna outplay you and beat you from this. It's still very much up in the air. Maybe the computer would say, okay, 0.5 advantage for White or something, 0.7. I don't know. It's easier for White to play, but again, weakness on E3. Low time, the bishop can't really develop. So we'll see whether if he can activate these pieces. And look at this. Look at the pawn on c4. It's blocking this guy. So you have the bishop here, but it's like in a Nimzo Indian. A lot of times White has the bishop on d3, but he has pawns on c4 and e4 locked up. Like Black has pawns on e5 and c5 or something. The bishop's all locked up and can't get out. Okay, well then the bishop pair's moved, right? If you can't do anything, I'd rather have the knight. The knight's actually doing a lot more than one of these bishops, isn't he?
Yep.
This guy's not too terrible either. Oh, you know what? Black. Okay, there's probably something. Let's flip it around. Let's look at it from Black's perspective. There's probably something that Black is considering right now. It's a very risky plan, very risky. But yeah, I'm not sure. But I would at least look at it. I probably wouldn't do it. Okay, but look, think about it. If you have pressure here and here, these two pieces, minor pieces, looking at f3. How would you increase your pressure on f3? It's very risky. Again, I probably wouldn't recommend it, but it's interesting to think. At least you have to think about it.
I mean, maybe pushing the d pawn, d4.
This guy?
Yeah.
Well, that's a different plan. That actually might be a legit plan. The only thing that I don't like about it is when you push it, you actually free his bishop, and he's going to attack a6 or maybe come to c4 later, or even like reroute. So it's almost. This kind of semi-closed nature of this game with the pawns fixed in place and like hard for anyone to break or for White to break in particular, it makes the bishop contained. So d5 is very interesting, Kay, but yeah, it would free this guy. See how it does free that guy on e2?
Yeah.
Okay, there's another plan. What do you think I'm thinking of? Actually, X, when we streamed that game, I did this in our game because I was trying to attack your king side a bit. It didn't work. You were able to do just fine with that. I think we got a draw or something. Or no, at the very end, no, you had to win. No, you were up in exchanges. You had a really good position, but at the end, it was like some skirmish with a passed pawn on c3, right?
Yeah.
But do you remember what I did against to target the diagonal? To break it open?
Did you play g5 or something?
Yes, exactly. I think I had multiple pawns. I was trying to do like a pawn storm. It was very risky. But again, this would be super risky. It's interesting. It's thematic to do it, but like you have to be prepared. But why is it particularly risky to move your g pawn given the imbalance of the current pieces of these that we have here? The imbalance in that what does White have that Black doesn't have?
A dark for bishop.
Exactly. And what do you?
Like e4 and put their bishop on h6.
Oh yeah, that's one way. I'm even just looking at this. This is a nice diagonal. You're never going to be able to get a firm grip on that diagonal ever again. At least right now, you can like keep your g pawn and guard it with your rook or something, or your queen's already guarding it. Keep your knight here. But when push comes to shove, if you play g5, he may consider playing f4. With the bishop to weaken himself with f4. But positional factors like that don't matter because the main factor is the diagonal. at that point. So it's tactically very loose. I mean, okay, if he can secure his diagonal, like knight comes back or something, then you got to worry about, you have to play g5, rook g6, knight covers h8, rook covers g7. It's like that's going to be dangerous. But I'm just saying, it's interesting. If you can secure that, like, I don't know how, maybe h6, king h7, rook g8. You know what I mean? Because like if the rook's on g8, it covers h8 and g7, right? Then you run your g pawn. See? g5, g4, try to chip at f3, bayonet attack, right? Try to crack open f3. I mean, hey, then we're in business, you know? You got like doubling your rooks. So hey, if you can make it happen, suddenly black has all this play on the g file, the diagonal, the knight comes into action, right? I would like to do it. I might consider it if I'm really aggressive with black here, going for king h7, or maybe black just wants to neutralize things and hope for a draw. But look, I mean, white's clearly better long run here, right? White, if you just sit around, white's doing better with this long-term pressure, you know? Eventually the bishops activate. I don't know. I think black should try to do it if possible. What do you guys think? What else would you try? If you were playing with as a Dimitar Mordov, what would you do?
Definitely not super pleasant to play.
Yeah, it's kind of thorny.
It's thorny. I mean, but again, it's a tense situation. You know, that's why he's got 25 minutes, so he can utilize his time for a little bit here. He should probably spend 5 minutes and really figure things out here. You know, I think he probably already has. Yeah, he already has spent almost 6 minutes on the last move. I mean, white certainly utilized. I mean, white went from 12 to 11 to 6. Another 5 minutes on rook f2. I mean, as long as he has a clear, it's more important that you have a clear plan, and then the position can kind of play itself. But it's definitely easier for black to create complications here and try to, you know, kind of wade through the complications, kind of pierce the fog of war, and make it work for him. Meanwhile, white's getting down to 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and then he's happy with a draw at that point if he's under pressure. So he's not going for g5. He's just applying direct pressure this way. I think this is the gutsy move, but it's like, again, with that bishop, it's really too risky probably. But it's interesting to look at. So he's just going direct on the g file.
That's not the type of thing that I would play, but some people might.
Right, some people might. It's cutthroat. It's if you're a really cutthroat player, you're like, I want the win. You know, like I said, I mean, you can make it workable. Like in a blitz game, I might try h6, king h7, rook g8. Then you have to mitigate this stuff on the diagonal. You have to mitigate g7, h8 pressure. If you go h6, king h7, rook g8, g5, I don't know. I think it's workable. He can always do it in the future, but right now he's making it harder with the rook in front. Maybe he can like move it out of the way or something. I don't know, and then do g5. But it's then you don't have I want king h7 though, so my rook covers h8. See, otherwise you need this awkward knight f7. Let's cover that.
Yeah, that gets a little.
That gets a little thorny. So again, that's the only way you win.
It is the only way.
Yep. So now we got 24 minutes versus 350. It's intense. I'm pretty sure it's 40 move. It doesn't. I don't think it says there. Let me see. Let me go to the broadcast. 90 minutes for the whole game with 30-second increment. Oh no, there's no increment. I mean, there's a 30-second increment. There's no sudden death. Meaning, but that's a 30-second increment. 30-second increment is pretty generous. It gives you time. I love 30-second increments. Take my time.
I hate 30-second increments. Actually,
Why?
I love them. Well, I don't hate them. It's just I'm really bad with time pressure, and that'll make me feel better, and then it's gonna not make me think about it. Never mind.
Well, if you're bad, no, I mean, okay, yeah, if you're bad with time pressure, well, if you get it, do you get into time pressure a lot?
Oh, I feel like no matter what the increment is, I always get into time pressure.
Yeah, no, if you get into time pressure, then you should like the 30-second. I get into time pressure, so I love it because, I mean, every 2 moves you gain a minute. So you just kind of have to plan things out ahead of time. And I mean, I'll just let it drain down to 1 second. I'll do that. I'll let it, and I just keep my cool, and my opponent kind of gets unnerved by that sometimes. Because like, come on, just lose on time already, right? And then I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly what I do.
1, 2 seconds, 1 second, make a move. You say what?
Whenever somebody's like 1 second, I'm just like, don't move.
Yeah, but then you make the move, you're like, ah, because then now you make, it's a psychological thing in a way, because you're making them you're making almost them focus too much on the time, and then they might, that becomes the game for them. I gotta flag them. I gotta flag them. You make them fixate on that, they forget about other things. Yeah, I've gotten used to playing a lot. Like I was playing earlier today, like 0+1 and stuff. So I'm just like used to playing on the increment. But imagine if you play 0+2 or 0+1. I think Lichess will start from like 3 seconds then, but it's more like a 3+, starting with 3-second +1. But when you get used to that, you're like, oh, 30 seconds, that's nothing. Just have to stay focused the whole time and try to use your opponent's time as much as possible so you anticipate things. So where are we? Yeah, actually, when I played Ostrovkiy, I played some Virginia tournament a few years ago. I remember what he said at the end. What he said about it was, he's like, yeah, it was like randomness. Randomization, he called it. It became randomization because we were both. I guess he gets into time pressure too. No, I had an extra pawn at one point. It was like a crazy opening from it was the Larson Bronstein Larson variation of the Caro-Kann that I played. So I took back with my G pawn on F6. When he took my knight F6, took back. I had pressure, but he did a really good job of like tying down my king side and stuff. But then I eventually broke through with E5 and like got to take one of his pawns with it. And yeah, according to the computer, I was like doing really well, but then I missed an important move. And then he just kind of like played really well, like an IM would, just like handling the time pressure well, tightening up his king side, and like eventually I made a mistake in time pressure. But he said, yeah, at that point, but it was like so close that he said it was randomization because we were both down to like under a minute and just like making moves and trying not to lose on time, What's that?
You only played him once?
Yeah, I think I only played him once, yeah. Ostrovkiy.
Sounds like a cool game, but one of the annoying ending ones.
One second. Yeah? Hold on, I'm streaming. What are you doing? You want it? Oh, he's here? How much do you need? Really?
Yeah, I think I remember that from back in my youth.
How much time? Okay, just give me this.
Now that I'm 25, I'm starting to forget all my elementary school days.
And I think they're trying to play the part a little bit too hard.
So this is the Ostrovkiy game. So he just went back. We can see a couple other games too. So this is the GM. It's like GM invitation. It's basically a closed tournament. People trying to get GM norms, what we talked about earlier, right? So you have to score 2,600 performance because you need a 2,500 rating to get a GM. Like you guys know that you can have 3 GM norms and never become a GM if you don't achieve your 2,600. Did you know that? Or rather, if you don't achieve your 2,500. You know that? Oh, maybe woke up. Huh? What's that?
What's your rating?
My rating? On what? USCF or USCF or FIDE? Huh?
USCF.
It's like hovering around 2,200, right around 2,200. But then FIDE dropped. Like it used to be 22. It used to be above 2,200. Stayed around there for a while. Then it just like I had a couple tournaments, even with good scores, but I was playing against like lower rated players. So yeah, my rating went down. It's like I think it's like below 21 now for FIDE. But yeah, that's actually pretty consistent. They say USCF should be about 100 points higher than FIDE normally. It used to be the other way around for me. It was like 21 something USCF, 2,200 FIDE, then it flipped. But yeah, you just gotta play a lot of those tournaments to calibrate. You kind of stay sharp and calibrate your rating. Okay, so here we are. Queen D1. Queen D1. So you can see that, okay, let's flip it back again. So we were trying to look at it from Black's perspective from Martin. Now let's look at it from White's perspective. So Queen D1. You see he's applying pressure D6, but can he get enough pressure on D6, I don't know. Okay, but you guys want to check the computer evaluation on this?
Alright, sure.
Let's see what it says.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I think it might be about even. Who knows? It's like, but again, this is a human game, right? Ostrovskiy's really low on time.
I think white will be winning by like a pawn.
I think it'll be less than a pawn.
It said a pawn for a second, but now it's see at first it's like white's better. Then it's like I'm not sure about that. Like it's saying plus 0.3. Yeah, it's basically saying it's even almost. I mean, it's if it says anything less than 0.4, 0.5, it's basically even for human at a human level. Now it's saying 0.2. It's effectively deciding that it's even once it gets deeper in it. Now it's 0.1. It's not really sure, but basically now it says no. If it says 0, it means it doesn't know what's going on. Yeah, it's such an imbalanced game. It really depends how it goes. What's that?
Yeah, I mean both players have weak spots and both players have weak pieces.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look at this here. The knight's the hero right now. The rook is pretty good. It's like a typical kind of a Dutch setup. You know, basically play like a Dutch against an English. But you know, you often get the rook lift. Or maybe g5, g4. But again, like I said, that's super, super risky calculation to take. So we'll see if he's going to go for that risk later on. But this is good. At least black has some pressure right now. Black what?
But black's e-rook is really bad though.
Yeah, the e-rook. Well, it does put pressure with the queen on e3. That's important. Don't forget about e3. So transits, it's sort of x-raying to e3, right? It wants, I don't know, whatever. It's just some random computer move. Okay, you hit the rook, whatever. He can easily handle that, though.
I like white though better because it has the pair, the bishop pair.
Yeah, but again, the bishop pair is not everything. You know, if your bishop pair is tied down and can't act it, like, look at this bishop. What's it doing?
Yeah, the bishop pair has definitely become weaker than it had the potential to be earlier on.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was f3. Let me see. Well, see, he wanted to play f3. He naturally wanted f3 because he didn't like the knight, but that's a big price to pay. I mean, he probably could have played bishop b2 and just gone on with it. You know, he could have just stuck his bishop on b2. What's the computer saying? Knight e1 and then playing for like c5 push. That's interesting. It's just a really complicated position. But again, normally when I've seen some analyses that show that f5 in these positions are not that great structurally for black. Unless you have the e5 pawn working with the f5 to like support f4 or something, or e4 even, e5 to e4 was by this one. But I don't know, like right now. But hey, at the very least, this pawn supports tonight. So I think maybe playing f3 was not that great. I mean, the computer's looking at it. It's like, okay, it's equal if you play f3. That's all you can get. All white's getting here is an equal game. Yeah, again, because black has counter pressure. Was c5 best? Yeah, apparently c5. And a6 because we never want to take. It's a really interesting game. It's really good for properly evaluating a chess game, right?
Yeah.
Wait, was rook f2 saying best? No, it's still it wants to go rook b6 immediately. No, then it's changing its mind. I think it's fine. Either way, it's fine.
Yeah.
Probably not just a
I'm a
move.
little bit confused.
Yeah, the computer. It's confusing the computer for sure because it's just such a tough evaluation. Okay, so he goes queen b3, gets behind it. So we're making some pretty. Oh, then he went back. Then he retreated against this. Look at that. Now he's tied down to c4. So white has to worry. So sure, black has to worry about d6 and a6. White has to worry about c4 and e3. So we both have like two weaknesses to deal with. So in other words, it's about dynamically balanced, right? And again, it's kind of not. It's not an open game. It's kind of semi-closed with this, and the fact that it hasn't blown open. If one of the players achieves a break in the middle, it'll blow open. But that's the thing. It's easier to open a game than it is to close it. Because once the pawns are gone, you can never close. A game is closed because of what? Why do we say it's a closed game?
Because of the pawn structures and the way they are.
Yeah, because the pawn structure, the pawns that are locked up, like bricks, locked in place, that makes it that denotes a closed game. So once the pawns are gone, it can only be an open game. Like just because pieces are in the middle, that doesn't close the game, right? It's still an open game, just with pieces that are cluttering the middle that are just really active and tactical because the pieces can quickly reach the other side of the board, which is why bishops are so great in open board. There's nothing stopping them, right? Just cutting through pieces, trying to like bishop b2 for example. So he really wants to keep this knight here, I think, to mitigate any kind of bishop b2 stuff. And by the way, if he goes bishop b2, he moves away from e3 and he blocks the rook. So it's like a lot going on. It's really close to even, and white does have an issue with the time pressure. So we'll see. Let's take a quick look at the other ones, and then you guys want to play one? Okay. So here, I'll go back. Forget about the computer evaluation. We're doing human evaluation, right? We're trying to look at we're trying to break down the components of the game. Okay. Oh, oh, oh. Okay. She's making moves for me. Let me go back. Oh, oh, oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So King F2. What is going on here? So we have two IMs, Bora and Guo. Two IMs. So they're both vying for a GM norm, right? They already have their IM title. And like I said earlier, if some of the competitors beat them, they can still go for an IM norm, right? They play 3 IMs or higher. They get a 500 or higher performance. They can still go for an IM norm, right? Then they would need a 2400 rating ultimately. 2500 performance, they should be able to get an IM norm if they play 3 different titled players, like 3 IMs or higher, right?
Yeah.
So what's going on? 4 against 3. But we have opposite colored bishops. Those are tough, right?
Yeah.
Those are tough to win. I mean, those are not. I do like those 3 pawns on the right. The 3 kingside pawns for white against 1. That does give white some winning prospects, because the 2 pawns that black has are double isolated pawns. They're not going anywhere, right?
And on the A file, so it's very worse.
Yeah, I mean, if he can get them going, that's one thing. But I don't. I don't. Thank you for that one.
Both of their squares to move into.
Controls what?
But the bishop controls.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you keep your bishop looking at A3, nothing's going to happen. So it's the kind of position where, like, white is playing for 2 results. White should not lose this position. I mean, being up a pawn, it's almost like being up 2 pawns. That, the kingside pawn. Now the question is, can you roll your queen? Can you roll your kingside pawn / can you enter the position with your king? Maybe utilizing the fact that you have the pawns controlling a lot of squares. Maybe it comes down to a draw, though. It might boil down to a draw. Oh. Welcome to my world. A hula hoop around the hula hoop around my neck.
Yay.
While we're analyzing chess position. Are you guys going to play in any in-person events coming up? There's a lot of stuff coming up. Or more than there was.
Probably.
Well, you guys have played. I know X has played in what? How many in-person have you played this year? 1?
No, I've played like 2 or 3, I think.
Oh, you played more than that, yeah. Okay. And then I know you've done a lot of online too.
Yeah, I've played a bunch of online events.
Mm-hmm.
Like I usually play one at least every couple weekends.
Yeah, I think the key was, at first it was like the wobbly transition, but now you're warmed up. That transition back to in-person is difficult. Okay, so we'll come back to this. We'll see if White's able to make anything of it. But this one is one where, like, you can reach an endgame that's good. And again, you're playing for 2 results. You can't lose it. And sometimes just a good endgame can effectively be a forced win. So if you're a good endgame player, you'd prefer that over a murky middle game. Like, that's what Karpov went for all the time, or Capablanca. Go for a clearer situation in an endgame. Even though it is kind of drawish. It is drawish. But he's going to play G4 at some point. You have to get those pawns rolling. G4, because if he goes king here, you can play bishop C3 potentially. Kick him out a little bit. Yeah, you go G4 check, king E5, bishop C3 check, king D5, and then you can go king out and start invading. I just don't know. Yeah, I just don't know how you're going to... I think White wants to trade off maybe the H pawn, or the F pawn. But I think White wants to make it so you're going to trade it off and be left with 2 connected pass pawns. That's got to be White's best try. But even then, I think Black can still utilize the bishop to blockade. That's the thing. It's a little bit of an interesting variable with the with the bishops, the opposite color bishops and the split pawns. But I still think it's going to boil down to a draw. What do you guys think?
No.
That bishop just can blockade too many squares that you can't cover. Yourself.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, this is pretty even terrible.
I mean, you have a pawn, but it's, again, opposite color bishops always makes it hard to convert. Okay, knight to d6. We have now here we have Dragoon. Oh, that's a good name, Dragoon. I wonder if Dragoon plays the dragon. Camille Dragoon versus Kyron Griffith. in this case, what did well he in this what he's playing with white, unless he wants to play like a reversed dragon. So he's going for knight f3, g3. He's playing like what, a King's Indian set. Okay, be there soon. d3. Yeah, he's playing a King's Indian. Okay. You ready? Or I'm gonna bring him over there. All right, I'll be right there, guys. I'm just gonna bring him in the other room. So he's got a king. Wait, why is it going back? Okay, he's got a King's Indian setup with knight d2, pretty typical. Fischer you guys have seen Fischer games like this, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the whole a3 thing. That's kind of weird. That's interesting. A lot of times you'll see c3. I mean, obviously, again, talking about weakening squares, you will weaken d3 if you play c3. But it's very typical to do that. Just keep an eye on the c3 square. It's doing this kind of different system. Well, he's a GM. I mean, he must have done a little prep on this. Let's see what he has in mind. Okay, get queen e2. Now, if you ever play e5, you're going to overprotect your e5 pawn. You guys know about overprotection?
Okay.
See how he has three on that? Knight, rook, and queen, right?
Yeah.
So he's securing that, and that's like the wedge pawn for white, putting a lot of space and getting a lot of space, putting the squeeze on black. But normally it's used to attack its king side. So black's like, okay, you want to attack my king side? Over here with h4 and e5, I'm going to go on the queen side and not be a moving, I'm going to be a moving target. I'm going to get away from you. Well, okay. I mean, white will probably actually go for b4 at some point. Maybe, yeah, I see he plays c3. He might end up then preparing b4. Okay, I'll go to the live position. Oh, wow, he sacked an exchange. Well, take a look at that. Why do you think he sacked the exchange? I'll be right there, okay? One moment. All right. So what is going on, guys? That's interesting. It looks like a kind of random exchange sack, but
Yeah,
he has there is
kind of crazy.
yeah, like it's like, was that early? But I mean, this is interesting. Okay, so he's playing g5. I mean, well, this is very interesting. You see, do you guys know what's going on? I mean, obviously black. Anytime you're opposite side castle, you're gonna open up lines, right? You want breaks. So g5 is a nice break and try to open lines for black. I'm liking black here. I don't know, but see, look what's going on. So you see, why do you think, so knight h2, right? He's stopping the push to g4 because he's like, well, if anything, actually, I'm going to blockade the g pawn and then further reinforce with those pieces the e5 pawn. But see, this is the contest. This actually reminds me of his famous game of Petrosian defeating Spassky, where the e5, well, it was doubled pawns in the center, but this became critical, the e5 one. But now rook takes h2. Why do you guys think he did rook? I mean, it's just like, looks like, are you ready for an exchange stack? But I think it's about the center. Because if you take with the king, well, first of all, you take with the king, again, you can play g4, and what happens next? Plus the rook's coming to the h-file. But after g4, what do you think black's trying to achieve?
Nice for black.
But specifically, what is black going to achieve, though?
Then they can take the pawn.
Yeah, I mean, so basically it's like, okay, a pawn for an exchange. That's not that bad, especially if you get initiative for it, right? Look at that black center. Once you take this pawn later on, you might go like e5 later. Or just like, you got g4, you got the rook h8, you might have like some kind of pieces moving, the queen might swing, or like she might come from the back rank or something like that. Double up on the h-file, you've got central control is going to be a big part. I actually did a study over the weekend with the international adult class I do, and we were looking at Soviet games, like games of the Soviet masters. Pretty much every game had some type of central breakthrough. They were all like attacking games, but they were like a central breakthrough leading to an attack on the king. So you don't have to go, through door A, right? You could choose door B or door C sometimes to get to the king. Come laterally or something. Okay, so rook takes h2, knight takes h2. Now, interestingly, he does not take this yet. Well, he's going to take it on the next move. But he why not? For good measure, toss in, just attack the queen, toss in the knight move, right? Let's look at this from black's perspective. I want to see how, this looks nice for black, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see how it ends up going, though. So knight d4, then he gets his pawn back. Okay, so it's basically like you're sacking a pawn. Exchange for a pawn is 1 point, right?
Yep.
So you +1 for white. Okay, exchange for pawn. That's not everything though. This position is all about when you have opposite side castling. It's all about positioning. Who has more initiative? Who can create pressure? But I mean, clearly black is ahead now in the attack, right? Clustering his knights. He's got the H file.
White's pieces are all on the first or second rank. So yeah.
Good center for black. Yeah, I think White's gonna punch back and eventually try to. I mean, White's gonna probably try and go like A4, A5 or something. Maybe open this up, or again like play in the center, try to get some kind of open lines. He's got to utilize those rooks. That's his advantage right now. But yeah, I really like black's center though. And the knights. Okay, so knight F3, and he's just like, okay, if you take me and my bishop centralizes. If it were me, I would try to preserve the knight. But here's the thing: he's gonna lose the G pawn, so he doesn't want to just drop the G pawn for nothing. Well, he actually, I guess he's letting him take the G pawn though, anyway, isn't he? But you can see that black is brewing something up, right? See all these pieces kind of X-raying, looking at G3, anticipating some sacks.
Like starting an attack.
Yeah, and by the way, if you end up taking this pawn, you have to worry about the G file opening, which is going to enhance this attack on where the king is. So we have knight takes E5, bishop takes E5, queen G4. Rook H8, take the H file, bishop D2. Okay, White's just like let's I'm a GM. I'm not gonna fall prey to this IM's attack. I'm just gonna get my pieces out, get the rooks connected. Let's see how well White defends this. Let's see. I mean, it's like black has a big attack. It's not like black's attack is crushing yet, but it's pretty good initiative, don't you think?
Yeah. It's like not time to super panic yet, but you definitely need to defend.
You need to bet. You need to set.
Not a bad position.
For White or for black? For black?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, he has compensation, basically. He has a good degree of compensation for the exchange sacrifice. But White needs to sense the danger, for sure. White needs to be careful. It doesn't mean White's losing. White needs to be careful. Okay, so bishop D2, bishop F6. Well, that's interesting. This is hanging. The computer said F6 is best. Just hold on to this. But I mean, again, I think he's offering. Well, here's the thing: if the bishop takes, you might have like rook G8. I don't know. That gets murky because you can't go bishop F4. The rook takes the queen, and then you get the piece back. And then we'll have 2 pieces for a rook, which is excellent. We always like our 2 pieces for a rook. Okay, so D4. It's saying dubious. Well, okay, I got computer evaluation. Interesting. It was actually liking. You can see the bar on the right.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, it was actually liking White a bit. But again, like this, it's the kind of thing where the computer evaluation just doesn't matter that much because so many things can happen here. But it was liking White, and then it's saying, oh, now you don't have anything. It doesn't like D4. I mean, it seems sensible because if you trade, you're going to open up the C file, right? Against obviously some tactics there. But he does not trade. He just gets his king out of the way, and he continues his initiative. Actually, now black has more pressure on this pawn. And apparently that's a blunder. Wow. Okay, that's baffling to under. It doesn't look like a blunder. It looks like a prophylactic move, right? Like a safety move.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think that's a blunder? Let's try to figure this out. Wait, I'm gonna block out the analysis too, so even for YouTube, because I think on YouTube you're seeing the whole screen. You guys are just seeing the part that I made in green, just the board, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna try to guess. So no one can.
It could be a mistake, but how is it like a full-on blunder? It doesn't seem that bad.
No, it doesn't seem. I know. At first glance, it seems like okay, that's reasonable enough. That's funny. Let's try to find out why. Because if anything, I can see like White's saying, oh, maybe sometimes the bishop takes and like comes back or something, and you don't want to be on the diagonal. So I can see the reasoning. It's like, hey, you're behind the bishop now, you're safe. So why is black suddenly in huge trouble? What does White have?
I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah, it's not like you can go bishop takes D5 because if the pawn took, you can undermine this knight, overloaded pawn, but the bishop's there. Just bishop takes that. There's nothing there. What else? We got to find this, guys. Okay, let's look at the obvious bishop takes pawn. What happens there? Oh, the king is not defending the queen anymore. So, guys, what happens after bishop takes pawn? What about rook? Okay, the rook will naturally go to G8, right?
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah.
Then you can just go. Then you can actually go bishop F4 finally, and it works.
I think you can because if again, remember I said the rook takes in the previous line, the bishop took, and the bishop got taken. Now it's not going to get taken back. Just trades down, picks up a pawn, trades down, probably a winning endgame. just up in a pure exchange. So rook g8, bishop takes rather, rook g8, bishop f4. Then you'll probably have to play like queen back, like queen c8 or something, queen d8, queen moves. Is that what it's looking? Is that what it's looking for? That is what it is. That is what it's looking for.
That's crazy.
It's just
like casually just playing to plunder.
I know, it's just a normal looking move, but it's interesting. I mean, the weird thing about it in particular is that this has been sitting here for so long too, and the fact that like, hey, why it seems like black is doing just fine. It's very unexpected that you'd have such a big evaluation shift, but you know that's why I was saying maybe go f6. But I think it's kind of an assessment you have to make, like a judgment call. It's like, hey, I mean, I don't really mind hanging this pawn because I get open lines, but you know, here's the thing. You can't just, sometimes you can't just make such a, it's intuitive, but sometimes you can't just make such an empty assessment. You know, just like, oh, losing these pawns that are in front of his king side, you know, must be good because I'm gonna have open lines. Not necessarily. There's many dragon lines where black like will win those pawns in front of like on the G file and the H file where the black king has white's castle queen side. Black wins those pawns and like sacks an exchange or a piece back and like, okay, now black has 3 connected passed pawns on the king side and wins. Or yeah, you can often win by playing on the side where your king is even and opposite side. There's no hard and fast rule. Generally speaking, yeah. Generally speaking, like maybe 80-90% of the time, sacking this pawn, like getting the open play, like white sacking the B pawn or something, or especially if white sacks an A pawn somehow, that's usually worth it because you're gonna have open line against the king. You get compensation, right? But not always. Your opponent doesn't mean your opponent can't outplay you from there. Hold on and be up a pawn, right? Win the endgame. That's the cool thing about chess. You can never know for sure, like whether it's good or bad to sack something. You have to make a good judgment call, right? Yeah. Based on the unique situation. That's why it's so hard. Never always applies. Okay, so what are we at now? 14 minutes. So we have more than twice as much time for the IM. But now the GM is what? How much material is the GM up? Just a clean exchange up, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. So I guess you could take the pawn, but that will open up the rook. You see how he has 2 attackers here? So if you take, you would have to take with the queen. You actually couldn't even take with the knight because this is pinned. So if you wanted to take and he took back, you'd have to take with the queen, trade queens, and then allow the rook to infiltrate, as you said. Probably not. So he doesn't go for it. Yeah, white's just... Wow, that's amazing. You know, black had such good compensation. He just somehow blew it with the king 8. So wait, what was his improvement? What was he supposed to do? I don't know, what, queen e7 or something? So random.
That's crazy that he lost it all just because of that.
Yeah. Well, you don't really want to go to e7. Maybe like queen d8. I don't want to go to e7. I don't want to walk into the rook. There's too many tactical possibilities on these. Probably I would go to d8. What is the computer's preferred line? Let's see. It already did analysis on it. It says c takes d4 is best. Here's what it's saying is best. Here's the line it gives. Yeah, takes. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, again, it's like you're breaking a rule. Oh, you shouldn't open up a rook near your king. Okay, fine, we can handle it. The rook's not going to do anything yet. But the point is we get something in return. Now we guard this, and we get to attack this pawn. Now we're actually threatening to like go knight takes d4, see?
Yeah.
Potentially. No, you can't sack the bishop here for this one. And the bishop will attack the rook. So, yeah, that's what you should... Okay, so blunder. That's a deep blunder. And then the white pieces are doing well. Okay, black is... You know, an interesting thing about these positions, it looks dominating, like it looks very ominous with the pieces coming in, but is it that dangerous? You have to really assess this. Is it a real threat or is it a ghost threat? Queen h7.
Can't you just play like king f1 and they have nothing?
Yeah, or you wait for the check. You're like, go ahead, check me, I don't care, and then I go king f1. Or you can do it first, doesn't matter. Yeah. Unless there's actually... Okay, I take that back. If bishop a6, then it's mate. So that's interesting. You have to be a little bit careful. That could suddenly be dangerous. Then you'd have to play like f3 and go king f2. But the point is, generally speaking, this check, unless you can, you know, obviously if there's a rook on f1 or something controlling f1. Otherwise, the king just scoots. So I've done this again with a dragon, comparing it to a dragon, with g6, bishop g7 scenarios. You know, the king just runs out. You know, you let them sack material to set this up. It's kind of like as if black had sacked material to get this attack, but there's not really an attack. White's fine. And that's why the computer evaluation is saying whatever, way down here for white. Okay, so g4. Okay, I don't know about that move. All right, wants to kick the knight out. What's going on? The knight could come in here, right? Okay, he's pinning the pawn. Says its evaluation is even worse now. Yeah, I mean, it seems natural to stick your knight on h4, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, I don't know. Yeah, he'll probably just like bring his queen back and then take back with the queen. Because
Yeah,
this is a very important guardian. Yeah, I don't know why he played g4. That's interesting. I don't think he needed it. But it's fine. I mean, as long as he's sure he's safe. So queen h4. But again, what black doesn't really have enough. And look at this bishop. That bishop is like a non. It's just a defender. It's like not doing anything. Centralizes it. Just taking this diagonal. You have to be a little bit careful, right? Some kind of trick.
Yeah.
The rook just goes back. Then he might take some pawns or something. Try and get something out of this. But even if he does that, you know, this pawn's. Oh no, yeah, he's guarding this. But the knight's hanging at the moment. The knight is hanging. So when he goes, the moment he goes rook here, that's interesting. Wait, what's going on? So he's hanging his knight. You see that?
Wow.
You know why he does that? Wait, that's super murky. Super murky.
Yeah, that gets a little bit weird.
Well, look, now he doesn't have rook c1, so he has to go here. Wait, do we have like a draw after the rook in the corner check? You see that? Because then when the king takes, then the queen comes over and takes this one. Might be a draw, at least.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, like these checks. I'm not even sure if that's a draw, but he did something with the check. You know, after the queen takes, check, bishop blocks. Now you can also look at bishop a6. Oh, that's interesting. Hitting f1, but then he has queen check. You just move your king. He can check you. It looks really scary. You just move your king again. You just go back and forth. He can't do anything further. You see? He can't. White can't achieve more than. White can't achieve more than that. Interesting. That's pretty deep. So let's look at that real quick. So if he takes, so it's either going to be he has to go bishop f1. It's either going to be rooks, sack the rook to check. You check here. He comes up. You check here. I think he's getting out of that. Yeah, because the bishop's not doing anything. You can't check him on f3. You'd have to check him from f1. I think he's kind of escaping. No, maybe not. Maybe not. Here. Then you start checking behind. You might have a draw that way. It's a little murky.
Maybe.
I think the king goes to f4 and the rook blocks or something. Then you check him, like, you keep checking, though. You have, like, queen d2 check, block, queen f. There might be enough checks. But I think this would work, actually. Does it look like it's enough? Because okay, let's say, look, this looks scary, but it doesn't do anything. You can check him right in front of him. It doesn't do anything. No other good check. Check again, just repeating moves, right? That's crazy. So he does not, well, he's threatening a mate now. So the bishop goes from 0 to hero. Look at that. So that's why he did not take the knight, the bait. Well, then he's just trading. That's a good move. He's trying to just trade down. If you check him, the rook goes back. Wait, are we here now? Oh, he resigned. He resigned. He just resigned. Interesting. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's just not good. I mean, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, he's just forcing a trade then. So let's say you move your queen. He takes. You take. 3, 4, 5. Oh, oops. Ouch. And the knight falls. It's not only a trade. The knight falls. Wow. And if you throw in this check, the rook just goes back. And you don't have like some kind of 2 rooks for a queen deal. If you grab this one, the rook is guarded. So you take this. Okay, you're just down a knight for a queen for a knight. So yeah, that's why. Wow. So the GM pulled through, but I'm pretty sure black was doing well earlier.
Oh yeah, black was, but the GM escaped.
GM escaped. Look at that. Look at the evaluation right here. Way up for black, like almost, what is that? Like 1 point something.
Wow.
It's liking black a lot. It's giving about a point ahead. So even though, well, wait, we're here. He hasn't sacked yet. Now it's saying 1.2 ahead, so it's really liking him. It does not like this exchange sack. It's giving him, hey, it still gives him equal, though, which means he basically has full compensation, according to Stockfish. But it's saying you should just play rook h5. Just double rooks, basically. I mean, the thing is, the pressure here is never going away. I think he just was, maybe he should have been more patient, but he wanted something, like, clearer, and he just thought, hey, this looks really cool. I mean, why not? And he's saying, oh, wow, I think you should go queen takes e5 and just trade queens to go into an endgame with it. I don't know. And says saying he's actually doing well in the end game. That's he has so much compensation. I think this is fine though. It's saying about again, this is where we're about even evaluation. But black, yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's if it's an even game, then it's just really who plays it better, who can outplay who. And black did not, and black got outplayed because he played King A8. He outplayed himself with this random move that seems like it's fine. What were you saying next?
Oh, I was just saying, generally that's gonna be the GM.
Yeah, and that's really what happens a lot of times. Like you could be, I've played GMs and I've been doing fine again. I've drawn a GM. I've beaten quite a few IMs, but it's just a different level. IMs are very slippery too. I mean, I win a pawn, like I said, against Ostrovkiy. Like I won a pawn again. I had an extra pawn, but he had some compensation. Apparently, according to the computer, though, I had like a -1 situation where I was just like up a clean pawn. But then I let him get that compensation, and it was probably became about. I think he got the pawn back or something. It was about even. But he's he's just a stronger player than me. He's a few hundred points higher than me, and you can get a good position against them. But over time, like that's how Carlsen wins, right? He's just over time playing a little more accurately than his 2700 level opponents or even 2800 level opponents, and you just can't beat him. He's going to eventually grind you down. Slightly better play over 50, 60, 70 moves, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some cool games. Let's go back to the Ostrovskiy game real quick. Oh wow, it's boiling down to an end game, like just entering an end game phase, kind of late middle game, early end game.
Yeah.
We still got a lot of dangerous stuff going on though with those queens on the board. So wow, it changed a lot. So Ostrovskiy's going for like a pawn storm. But look at black's pieces. Black's pieces are excellently placed. And look at we got rid of the bishop pair. We just got one knight, which is a really good knight. The bishop is still not that it never became like that great.
White's pieces are just a little bit inferior to black.
Well, the main thing going on here, though, is the queen's really active and the pawns are really... So, I mean, if black is not careful, white has like a g5, g6, king up, and like queen h8 mate, right? So there's that. But I think that I think black will quickly get... I mean, black needs very quick counterplay. Because he's probably contemplating... Look. So even though white is not... I don't know. I mean, white's king is pretty open, but... He's trying to hold him off and just hoping he has time for g5, g6. That is very dangerous, actually. And funny enough, he doesn't really use any of these. These pieces are more defensive, if anything. Kind of controlling a diagonal, but it's not... It might be part of the attack. That's interesting. He's making almost like a little bit of a prophylactic move. I don't know. What do you guys... Okay, guys, take a guess on the evaluation now. Before, I think it was saying it was about even. What do you think it is now? After all this craziness. And Ostrovskiy's down to 38 seconds. But again, so he made a move with 8 seconds. He gained 30. His opponent still has 3. Getting into time pressure for both.
I'll say that it's like... Mardov has like plus...
It's tricky though, because remember, g5, g6 is coming soon. Oh, it's not that simple, is it? g5 is meant like queen takes. Yeah, so Mardov's got... I mean, look at the piece placement. As you said, white's pieces are pretty passive except for the queen. So you prefer Mardov?
Minus 0.5.
That sounds... I agree with you. Maybe even more, actually.
Mardov plus a pawn.
Yeah, look at this. Look at this move. That's a strong move.
Mardov plus a pawn.
Yeah, I might agree with you. I think it's the difference of that maybe. I think you guys are both about right. You never know what the computer's going to think, but I think you guys are right that it's preferring black by probably up to a pawn. Let's see. You never know. No, it's preferring white. Hold on, and now it's going to change its mind. I think it's going to change its mind. I don't know. I thought this was quite strong. Look at these connect. Again, it really comes down to like how strong is white's plan with these pawns. White does have rook e1 though. White does have the pieces out now. It's weird, right? Such a weird position because I really like black's piece activity. I really like this. But black's king is kind of in a mating net. White's king, at least, I think that's what it's seeing. It's seeing some ways that, again, like we're looking at, you can't go, if you can go g5, it's like pretty much over. But you can't go g5 yet because once the queen takes the pawn, I think it's fine for black. That seems fine. Black has resources, lateral defense. I'm surprised, aren't you guys?
Yeah, I am too. I really thought it was going to be minus 0.5 to 1.
I thought black was better. Yeah, maybe for a human level, at least let's say around 2200 level, maybe from IM a 2400 level, maybe white can outplay. But again, if you don't do something decisively, this is I really like that pawn on d4. I was like, when you play that move, it looks really strong. But again, look at the black king. I think that's the factor here. the white king can easily like tuck away. You can't get him in. He's not in a mating net at all. You can easily. You can't get the king any more than he is now very easily. Oh, there is knight d2. That's interesting to attack f3. That muddies the waters a bit. And the bishop takes. You take with check, but then the rook blocks, and it's white's move again after the king moves. Yeah, I think that's really the decisive factor. It's just you have to keep on watching out for some type of, or like maybe, I don't know. I don't think white has time to like move the queen. I mean, if you get this, you're gonna win. But I don't think white has time because black will have at least perpetual, right? This king is still a little bit exposed. But he's hoping for a third story defense, right? It's like he's moved up to the third story. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna be up on the eagle's nest up here, and I'm gonna try to make a new shelter. But then, you know, obviously black can come from behind on the first or second rank, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know, this is gonna get crazy. It's the kind of thing where you need more time. But see, now we're both getting to 1 minute territory, around 1 minute. That's about even, because, you know, he makes one move quickly, he's above a minute. He makes a couple moves, he's got 2 minutes. So we're both around a minute now, approximately.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, the whole time pressure of these. If you just make a couple moves quickly, suddenly you can be back up at 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you could take a nice think. You know, you're thinking on your opponent's clock, think on your clock.
Yeah, so it's not really time pressure. You know that you just have to make a move and then you're.
Yeah, it shouldn't be time pressure. Like it's semi time pressure, but like if you treat it as too much time pressure, you know that's gonna get you in trouble. Like you have to be calm about it. You know, like I said, like I'll keep my. Well, now it says white is only slightly better. Yeah, I don't know. I think black is okay. I think black is okay. He found knight d2, which was apparently his best move. Check. Yeah, obviously rook d. Wow, that's interesting. See, another move that dumbfounding move, right? Remember the last one, like, why is king a8 so bad? For black to go to a8 seems okay, but we realized it's because the queen was loose. There's a line where the bishop would like attack it or something, and the king couldn't take back. That made all the difference in a certain line. So maybe this is the obvious move, right? But apparently king g3 had 5 points. When he plays this move, he's down. So in other words, 400 cent upon loss, right? 400 cent upon loss. Huge, massive blunder, basically, according to the computer, because he lost, basically missing a win, apparently. Because now he's a little bit better, +1, like you're up a pawn in your evaluation.
That's crazy.
Wow, I don't know why king g3. Like I said, he's up here on the third story, kind of perched up there with some protection. Wow, we'll have to look at that afterwards. But, you know, now after saying queen f4, he goes for this. Oh, white's better again. Okay, I don't know, but I think it's murky enough, and the time is low enough that we can, if it's around +1 or -1, anywhere in the plus or -1 range, I would take that with a big grain of salt. You know, it still likes king g3. It just loves king g3. That's interesting, isn't it? Well, it's prophylactic. Just get away from all the checks, right? Still, if you go here, like, oh, because you can't go rook here. Because you abandon this square, I think. I mean, even if you... Oh, yeah, well, that's a mate. That's a mate.
Yeah,
you don't there's perpetual in some lines, but with the rook on the e-file, you go back, then you get mated with the rook. So, yeah, he can never... That's the thing about his position. The problematic thing for black is he can never abandon g6. That's just really strong pawn storm coming. Mating net here, surrounding him here. He's going for h5, which apparently barely gives him any advantage. I mean, I was tempted to play for g5 somehow. Wait, this is crazy. Do you have king g3 and then king f4 to guard f5 so you can achieve g5?
That is crazy.
Because remember, you can guard f5. That's the main problem. You can't get g5 because f5 falls. So you're like, hey, I really, really, really want to achieve g5. Maybe you just go king g3. You're good on g3, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, that's really fascinating. The queen starts coming behind the scenes, but even if you check, come here, queen h2 check. Oh, you can't go to h2. The king. Yeah, but maybe yes. So therefore, the rook is covering. So therefore, the king can maybe come to f4. I think the queen would like go to h1 though. Look at this one and still make it difficult to play. No, yeah. G5 meant by queen takes h4 check. So I think it'll be like down here, and then coming, if king g3, and then coming to h1 or something like that. But it's, yeah, you can see why it favors white, though, just because of this problem on g6, right?
Yeah, definitely.
He's got, this king has heir. The black king does not have heir. That's the problem. It's not really much of a loose for him.
Yeah. Instead of, if white moves the wrong piece, white gets, maybe you could end up getting three-folded. It's if black moves the piece, they get mated.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of different.
Okay, streaming good. You get 3. Okay, if he moves which one?
Well, I was just saying the difference I was saying between how if white moves their defensive rook to a wrong square, black could get in a couple checks. If black moves their rook to a wrong square, black could get mated.
Yes, you're right. You're right. So the stakes are different.
Which just shows the air difference around the kings, that it's like maybe somehow there could be a threefold versus an immediate checkmate.
I see. Yeah, threefold. Right. Yeah, the interesting thing about it though is that king can reside on f4 in many lines. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
G5 check. Okay, you'd have to take en passant, but then yeah, after taking en passant, mate is coming. So yeah, you can just see it's interesting how it's easy to misevaluate this debate. We're like, oh, black is fine, but the key factor is the king safety. Obviously, that's a huge factor, but it just seemed like, if G5 can't be achieved, if it can be achieved, white's basically winning. If it cannot be achieved, then it looked like that he was holding on, but it's just why, it's a very delicate kind of position. Very delicate position. Okay, what's going on now? So black is, like I said, he really needed to try to play this move, and that was computer moves. If you have unlimited time, maybe you find the computer moves. He did not. He lost 400 centipawns again, right? Basically a 4-pawn loss or a 400 centipawns loss by making a much inferior move to the computer's move. Rook f6. Okay, what is this? Now he's only up half a pawn. Yeah, but see, now black he maintained his good pawn structure, and they ended up drawing. He agreed. He offered a draw. He took the draw.
Oh wow.
Or did they repeat? No, they didn't repeat. They didn't have. They only made this move and he drew. Wow. Yeah, I think white blew it. I think white just blew it for Ostrovkiy. But again, like he was so low on time that he couldn't find it basically.
Yeah.
You guys want to play one quick blitz game?
That's very infuriating when that happens.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it could have been worse. It would be infuriating if you lost. If you lose a draw, you're like, okay, fine, my opponent defended well. I could have done better. But it's kind of like I'm playing for 2 results at that point. No, the other game, the end game, we're playing for 2 results. This game, white should, at that point, white should be playing for a win. Okay, nothing has happened, really. Oh, G4 was played, right? I don't think G4 was in yet. Okay, so the king, he does do this move with G4. He gets his bishop. Like I said, the bishop comes on the long diagonal. Remember, he shifted it? Because he doesn't need to be on A3. I mean, he'll just take A3 with the pawn, and he'll easily cover the A pawns. That's the main problem, though. It's just very hard for black to play because he has no prospects. Now, after G4, yeah, like I said, he's starting infiltrating. But again, it comes down to the kinds of pawn trades that you make. Whether you can make effectively, like, trade off these pawns. And don't split your pawns, though. If you split it, I think the king can kind of come in and block h7 or something, combined with the bishop. What he does is he comes behind the pawns, and then you can't really abandon that too easily. Like if you come here, he takes f3. If you take g6, he takes g4. That's basically a draw.
Yeah.
He should. It's a little murky, but again, I think you need to come back with your king, and you would use your king and your bishop to barely hold h7. And obviously, white can never achieve anything on the queen side. I don't think so. If the king starts coming back, your king is still holding this. You just use your bishop and cover it, go to c2 or something, and you can easily always defend that. So I don't think white has enough. It's saying 0.6 now. It used to say +1. Now it's saying 0.6, 0.7, meaning it's probably a draw. Yeah. But nonetheless, you have to try. You have to try with the extra pawn for a little while. You can't just agree to a draw. He's a human. They couldn't make it. You see, that's what he didn't want, though, right? Ideally, we want to keep them together. If you had like a G and an H pawn together, now we have real prospects. But once your pawns become split, you guys can see how much more difficult it becomes to win, right?
Oh, yeah.
That is an outside pass pawn, don't get me wrong. But again, the black king is in position to come. Oh, he's coming this way. Yeah, black could mess this up, though. Well, again, okay, like let's see. I don't know, that may have been a mistake. What if king g5, bishop takes, push? Oh, it's the wrong corner, too. It's the wrong corner. So even if white wins both of these pawns, let's say black sacks the bishop. No, never mind. No, that's good. because it's not, it's going to be this pawn. It's only if it takes, which might happen. Black would need to like try to do this, make him take, have him be in the wrong corner, because you know you would need to be like this corner to win if it's like if you're up a bishop, right? Theoretical win, theoretical draw if it's here, because the king will just wait in the corner and stalemate or hold him back. Yeah, he would need to achieve this, but if he can't achieve that, I don't know. There's still chances. So yeah, it's giving him +1 again. So there's still, I mean, there are ways that, again, he's human. White's ahead of pawn. It is opposite colored bishops, but that is an outside pass pawn. I thought, wait, what if he had just gone for this method? Something like this. How does White win this? Bishop C2, let's say.
I'm really not sure.
I don't know. It looks very hard to win. Like I said, A3. He's anticipating maybe some sack. See, now the pawn, his passed pawn eventually is going to be on that, right? So you go A, or you can go A5 to A4, I guess. Wait, what? You have to sack it right now? Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Yeah,
You go here. Yeah, I don't know. This looks like a near draw, but maybe there's some amazing way. If this were to happen, there may be some amazing way that White wins. I don't see it. How to make progress, guys. I mean, something like this. Again, because the point is, wait, what? F5 check? What is this? Oh, is that he tries to pull the king far enough away? So he does sack the bishop, but the king is far away. Question is, can the king make it in time? I think he can. You see, it's only saying 0.7. It's not saying. That's interesting. But you have to, here's the problem. He has to use his king to take the pawn. He can't take, that's why he needs to be on a light square. It's very important. Okay, gain a tempo on the bishop. Ah, he's not letting him approach. That's crazy, though. You have to go away and to the side. Then he comes here, let's say. But still, you just keep waiting. Anytime he starts approaching, you're going to start approaching. So you'll be one behind him. So he takes, you'll be like here or something, and then you can start going into the corner. You see?
Yeah.
I think he just has it. It's crazy, though. White's still, in all those lines, White's pressing, especially if you get into time pressure. That's the only game going because it's such a complex endgame and so deep into the endgame. Good stuff, guys. You want to play one quick blitz game or something?
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
You guys want to get one in? Or I know we ended up going a little longer since we were doing the stream and everything.
I could play a game, but...
What do you guys think? Do you guys want to do a quick one, or what do you want to do?
I'll play a quick one. But
What do you think, Kay? Are you going to do a quick one?
I'll play just a quick, maybe really quick one.
Okay, why don't you guys get one blitz game? You guys want to like a 5-minute game or something? Why don't you guys play each other?
Okay, I'll tell him I'll do 5-5. How about that?
Okay, chess.com 5-5.
Yep. Unrated, colors random, and there's the channel.
We have live chess. I think I should be able to see you guys on there.
I'm gonna switch it up.
This. This is going to be able to decline now.
Okay, my computer is being really slow right now. Hold on. I need to like defragment my computer or something. Okay. Let's see.
I'm just playing something completely different.
So we're gonna wait. Where are connected? Where are you guys? Here we go. Awesome MVL, which could be Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, right? Could be. Or I'll stop share because you don't need that.
Yeah, I really don't know if it is so much.
Now let me see if where it would be now. If we go to live chess, wait, no. Yeah, I get this out of the way. Okay. That should be good. All right, let's see your guys' game. So, do we have, was that a Nimzo? Yeah, it was a Nimzo Indian.
Well,
So-
actually, no, it said it was a Nimzo, but...
I mean, effectively, no, it's effectively a Nimzo because when you go bishop b4, like, you can often go bishop b4. It's like a Rogozin, I think, when you go, but there's different versions of Nimzo where you put like d5 and c5 and stuff. Goes many ways, but basically Nimzo is starting with bishop b4, right? But it's more like, yeah, it's like a hybrid. Rogozin, I think, is with a hybrid bishop b4 and d5. Okay. So basically, you're trying not to double your pawns. You take back with your bishop. The knight comes in. Interesting. Preserving the bishop for now. Not letting you preserve it. So black can take back the bishop pair anytime if he feels like it. But as we saw in the previous game, I mean, black was okay with the knight did really well. I mean, he got into trouble later on. We'd have to look at that. But it was a really interesting game of the Ostrovkiy game. Ooh, that was an H pawn. So the moment you castle, you abandon the H pawn. Be careful. Remember, it was defended. The moment. Try to imagine what it's going to look like the moment you castle, right? Interestingly, if I were playing with white when the knight went to c6, I would just let him take on b4 because it'll open up your rook. You know, I might even let him do that. Okay, so we're up a pawn with h5. Yeah, probably you'd have to play like maybe castle queenside or play like g6 or something, or maybe even I don't know, queen out or something. But you have to deal with the h pawn first. All right, it's just a pawn. What are you gonna? You got to fight back now. What are you gonna do? What is K gonna do? Let's see. Okay, get a pawn back. Looks like that's. Oh, well, he's guarding. You can take that. All right, but you know, the thing is that the black king is castled, even though you know his king's a little open with the h pawn missing. But it's not like you can't get to it right away. The white king is still in the center for now. So, can you punch at it while it's in the center? That's the question. How would you try to get at it? How would you put pressure on the king?
Very casual.
I'm not saying you can, but I mean you can try. But I think you can castle in 2 moves, right? But the point is that black needs compensation. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, black does.
If you're thinking of like romantic era chess, okay, your opponent's stuck in the center. You need to sack things. You need to do crazy things. Otherwise, he's just going to be ahead.
Romantic era chess. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I don't going to be playing any of that today.
You don't plan to do any of that?
No, I really don't. At least not maybe another day.
Hold on, buddy. I'll be right there. I'll be right there.
Many attacking ideas right now. Not enough moves.
Okay, you got to come up with something. Well, how do you bust open you have to bust open the center. If I'm playing with black here, I'm opening the center. I mean, that's what the king is.
I'm just thinking right.
Thinking what? No, just talk about it like as an educational way, like not from a competitive. I mean, you guys are both, you know, sparring partner, right? You guys are friendly. So, you know, just in terms of like understanding the position. Black wants to open lines. He starts with d6 e4. I was thinking like e5 exactly. He's going for e5. I mean, I would have done e5. I would have done e5 right away. And then if he takes, I would take on. Then I would take on c3 and mess up the pawn structure. But the difference is that actually you could have left it on c4 because then if he goes, oops, he's walking into f7, right? Queen takes f7 check. King moves. Queen back to h5 is mate because the bishop will be open on covering g8. So, but this is fine. Bishop d3. Well, obviously bishop d3 is annoying. So what do you do about it? Does he have a real threat? Sort of. There actually is a threat. It's not a mate threat, but it is annoying. Very, very, very annoying. What happens? Okay, what happens after queen h7 check, king f8, queen h8 check? What happens there? Just anticipate that.
Okay.
Huh?
I had a whole mating attack. I'm joking.
Well, you have a check on h8. King goes to e7. What's hanging after that?
Yeah.
If the queen reaches h8, what's going to hang after king e7? And visualize that. But you only got a minute 40. You're playing what? Oh, you're playing 5-5, but still, that's not a 30-second increment. That's only 5 seconds. So after queen goes to h8, king goes to e7, what's the queen going to be attacking from h8? You guys see it? That is a threat.
Yes, coach, I see it.
That is very annoying. Do you see it? You see it, Kay?
Yeah, it's G7.
Yeah. So don't let her in. Just don't let her into G. Don't let her into. Either don't let her into h7 or cover g7. You have to make a choice. There is actually a way to cover g7. You could potentially do g6. G6 is a little risky. It might be possible though because there aren't like any pieces that could come in to follow up. I mean, I see obviously white has perpetual there. The other move, you went for that. The other move would have been like queen f6. That often happens. And then if you start checking, okay, fine, I'm just going to go to e7. Now your queen has to leave. That's queen f6 was probably fine also. But this is interesting. You're tempting your opponent like, hey, see if you want to sack. Okay, you don't want to sack. You want to play something else like, I see.
I'm not going to sack.
You're not giving into it. Okay, well now black needs to immobilize everything. Again, black needs to open lines.
Play from comfy position.
What's that?
I think he's gone.
There it is. I mean, you have to achieve this. You have to open your bishop. You have to open the e-file. You have to get play. Okay. Now you put the burden on white. What does white do? Actually, that's a good move. Very forcing move. A lot of pressure coming from black. What does white do? That's probably a good reply, because given that you were threatening to take on d4 and then sack, or not sack, just take on d4 with the knight of the queen because the rook e8 was pinning it. Okay, just keep going. Just get your pieces out. Get your pieces out. Trade the pawn or get your pieces out. You got to get your pieces out.
I'm trading. No,
Wait, are we missing X? X, are you?
no, he got disconnected, I think.
Ah, I see. He's back. Okay, X, you're back.
Sorry about the other there.
That's cool. Bishop g4. Okay, watch your time. Work that increment.
Work it! Alright, here we go. Let's just be a safe boy, you know. Yes. Wait, didn't he have, like, taking on d4?
Oh, he could have. No, because you don't take back with your knight. You take back with your pawn. It's a little messy, but yeah, if you take back with the knight, then the queen could take. But you take with your. If you took on d4, you would have taken back with your pawn. Opening up the e-file, yeah, but you are up a piece in that line. If he takes back with the knight, then your queen would take, because it would expose the e-file to the rook's pin. Bishop g4. Okay, what's going on? What is going on? Okay, at least black is activated now. White's king needs to figure things out with his life. Like castling. Good choice. Okay, black has a good move. Okay, you got 18 seconds. You got 18 seconds. Make it happen. Make it happen. Make that pressure on the e-file work. Let's see if you can find it in. You can give him like 30 seconds if you want.
Alright.
6. Come on, come on. You had bishop takes e2, you see? He could have taken on e2 when the bishop takes back. Then knight takes d4, you see? Because then you would be able to take back on e2. So you got to exploit those pins. You know, you got a lot of X-rays going on, creating a lot of pins. I mean, this is active too. I think white had like bishop g6 sack earlier, after bishop g4, right? You could have sacked there. A lot of tactics, guys. Okay, this feels like the Ostrovkiy game. This feels like the Ostrovkiy game with.
I have to just move.
Oh no. Yeah, you had knight. You had knight takes d4. Yeah, you got too low on time. But X K. K, you did have bishop takes e2 followed by knight takes d4.
I saw my screen for 1 second. I had half a second, so I just moved the piece.
You just like made a random move and then you saved. Yeah, at least you stayed in the game. But now black is now white's okay. I mean, just up a piece with a nice center. Can you push the pawn? Like,
it's okay. All right.
Because it's guarded. Oh, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah. Not the
forcing a queen. It would force a queen trade. Trade queens.
well,
Yeah, this wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough time. That's okay though. That was really interesting. Okay, you should have taken on. Okay, I liked what you did. You opened things up when you're on G4. Actually, you guys both missed a tactic. Okay, or I'll show you real quick. Okay, look. You see this? You see this position, guys, real quick? See, look, when you had bishop G4, white could have played bishop takes G6 because it's a loose bishop. You see that? Because when you take back, you fork these two. You see that, guys?
Oh.
He doesn't have time to take on E2 because now it's a mate threat. Queen H7 check is when you take on G6, you're threatening Queen H7 check and Queen F7, Queen H7 to F7 mate. So he has to take back, and then you take G6 and you pick up the bishop. Now you don't have to sack anything; you just pick up two pawns, pick up the third pawn. Then Black's king is totally without shelter. But if you do in the next move when he misses it, Black should now take the knight. See? I think White still has to take on E6, but if White takes back, then Black can take on D4 because the pin on the E file. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Because when he takes, then you take it back,
Yeah,
and then you get your pawn back, and you're probably fine. You should also probably play this move at some point.
I'm trying to sort out a couple technical difficulties, so I didn't exactly play the most accurate sequence on defense, because I was trying to reconsume in the game, yeah.
Well, another thing you could do is, like, the moment you're queen, I would have played H4 here, probably. Like, well, first of all, you don't even need bishop D3. Because the thing is, it prevents E5. I was saying if Queen F7 check, followed by Queen H5 mate. Because the bishop's open. So I would have, yeah. But anyway, after this, I probably would have gone H4, H5, and just try to crash through on the H file. That's strong too. All right, guys. Good stuff. Good analysis. Good analysis, guys. I'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye, Coach.
Bye, guys. Have a good Labor Day weekend. See ya. All right, and I guess the stream is still going. But yeah, that was some good analysis. I think it worked out. I haven't done it for a while. I think we got it still going strong. Connection was not that. I thought it was going to be a worse connection than that, actually. Oh, wait. It's like still showing. Wait, did I mute it? What? Oh, I see. No, it's like muted for me to watch. Oh, they wanted to play. All-Start Mile. Okay, maybe we could play another time. Next time I should do something like that. Well, usually I'll do like 960 streams, just play random people in chess 960. I kind of want to do something where I'm just like, oh wait, did it stop? No, I don't know. Somehow it was only working through Zoom. Hopefully it's still working on the microphone. I don't know. But anyway, thanks guys. So hopefully we'll do some more streams. Maybe I'll analyze the games of random players and stuff. All right. See you later.